What is religion? The best answer I have seen to this question comes from the lectures of Swami Vivekananda, a Hindu monk. Thanks for tuning into the Vedanta channel, in which I present ideas from Hinduism, the world's oldest religion, and Vedanta, the spiritual heart of Hinduism. He says, and I will read out the quote in his own words. There is one impulse in our minds which says, do. Behind it rises another voice which says, do not. There is one set of ideas in our mind which is always struggling to get outside through the channels of the senses. And behind that, although it may be thin and weak, there is an infinitely small voice which says, do not go outside. The two beautiful Sanskrit words for these phenomena are pravriti, circling forward, and nivriti, circling inward. It is the circling forward which usually governs our actions. Religion begins with this circling inward. End of quote. Religion is the circling inward. In another sense, religion is the description of the relationships between yourself, God, and creation. All the great religions of the world, no matter what they are, describe at a minimum the relationships between God, the creation, and the individual human being. If they do not do so, they will cease to be meaningful. So, when we compare the nature of the world religions, we find that there are two broad highways. The first highway takes the God-centric approach. It is focused on understanding God and the nature of God. The ancient peoples who lived in Middle East Asia took this approach. They asked, who is God and what is the nature of God? From these threads arose Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The other is the self-centric approach. The Sankhyan rishis in ancient India took this path. They said, all I know for a fact is that I exist. I have no such certainty that God exists. Therefore, I must know myself first. They asked, who am I and what is real? From their influence arose Buddhism and Jainism, the great Indic religions. Now, there are benefits and challenges to either approach. The difficulty of the God-centric approach lies in that it requires faith and a belief that God exists. While it may appear simple on the face of it, it is not easy for many of us to implicitly believe in a being such as God. We look around and we find scant evidence of God in our daily lives. There appears to be plenty of evidence to the contrary at times. We may try to convince ourselves of God's existence. We may chant God's name, but all but the rarest of rare are able to realize this faith and experience God. The rest of us experience a nagging doubt throughout our lives. Even Mother Teresa, one of the greatest devotees of Christ, towards the end of her life, wrote in her diary, I cry out into the darkness, but I don't hear his response. I cry out into the darkness, but I don't hear his response. Even the most devout feel despair. But the benefit of faith is its simplicity and directness, if we can muster it. We do not need to understand the scriptures. It does not require us to meditate, perform mental calisthenics, or understand complicated philosophy. All we need to do is believe, and that simple act, if done with the purest of intentions, can lead us to God. The self-oriented approach has its own challenges. It calls for tremendous discipline. It takes a commitment to learning. It takes reverence for the teacher, intense contemplation of what is taught, and diligent practice of the lessons learned. It is a long and arduous path, but its advantage is that it does not require us to believe anything at the outset. For those of us who are unable to muster the conviction of faith, this offers a path to spiritual progress. The uniqueness of Hinduism lies in how it connects these two highways in religion. It combines the desire to know oneself with the yearning to know the nature of God. By doing so, it provides a canopy for a diverse set of traditions. Many of these traditions are monotheistic at first glance, but they ultimately converge into the non-theistic monism of Vedanta, which can rightly be described as the heart of Hinduism. There is a beautiful Sufi poem which captures the spirit of Hinduism. It goes, "The man who goes in search of God finds himself. The man who goes in search of himself finds God." Thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, do consider subscribing to the Vedanta channel and sharing it with others like you who may be interested.